Chapter 1. The Volunteer. Max Hoffman stood in Captain Carl Harrison's office, studying the case files spread across the desk. 12 years as a detective, 8 of them in narcotics, had taught him to spot patterns others missed. This one was elegant in its simplicity, and that's what made it dangerous. 3 schools in the district, max. All affluent neighborhoods. All showing the same anomaly. Parent fundraisers collecting double what they should, but the money's not reaching the intended programs. Carl leaned back in his chair. And we're seeing a spike in prescription drug abuse among adults in those exact zip codes. Money laundering and distribution. Max tapped a photo of Randall Lowry, principal of Riverside Academy, the same school his daughter Sophie attended. He's using the PDA network. We need someone on the inside. Someone who can move freely, make deliveries to homes without raising suspicion. Carl's expression was grim. Your daughter goes there. Your wife volunteers at school events. You'd have access. Max's jaw tightened. Patricia, his wife of 13 years, who'd grown distant over the past 6 months. Who came home, late smelling of wine and expensive cologne that wasn't his. Who looked at him with something close to contempt when she thought he wasn't watching. What's the cover? Pizza delivery driver. There's a parlor 2 blocks from the school, Antonio's. We've already worked it out with the owner. You'll make legitimate deliveries, but it gives you a reason to be in the neighborhoods, to observe patterns, to get access to homes. My family will think I've lost it. Quit the force for minimum wage. Carl's silence was answer enough. This operation required sacrifice. Max thought of Sophie, 11 years old, at that age where peer approval meant everything. Thought of Patricia, who'd already made it clear she found his detective's salary insufficient for her aspirations. Thought of the kids who'd gotten hooked on pills that came through this network. I'm in. That night, Max broke the news over dinner. Sophie was absorbed in her phone. Patricia barely looked up from her wine. I'm taking a leave of absence from the department. That got Patricia's attention. What? I'm burned out. Need to clear my head. I've got a job lined up at Antonio's Pizza. Just for a few months while I figure things out. The silence that followed was arctic. Sophie's eyes went wide. Dad, you can't be serious. You're going to deliver pizza? It's honest work, Sophie. Patricia's laugh was sharp. Honest work. Right. While I'm trying to maintain our standing in this community, you're going to show up at our neighbors' doors in a grease-stained shirt. She stood abruptly. This is perfect. Just perfect. She left the room. Sophie wouldn't meet his eyes. Max felt the sting, forced himself to remember why. Somewhere in this community, someone was poisoning families. And he was going to stop them. Over the next 2 weeks, Max transformed. He let his appearance slide just enough. Missed shaves, cheaper clothes, the demeanor of a man who'd given up. Patricia's disgust became palpable. She started spending more evenings at committee meetings. Sophie began making excuses to avoid him. What they didn't know, every delivery Max made, he was mapping the network. Every conversation with a customer, he was gathering intelligence. His pizza delivery bag contained a hidden camera. His broken-down car had surveillance equipment sophisticated enough to intercept cell signals. And he was learning things. About Patricia's Thursday evening book club that coincided with Principal Lowry's late office hours. About the fundraising accounts she managed. About the charitable donations that never quite added up. His wife wasn't just unfaithful. She was involved. Chapter 2. The Performance. 6 weeks into the operation, Max had fallen into his role completely. He wore the red Antonio's polo shirt like a second skin, delivered pizzas with a practiced smile that never reached his eyes. His actual life, detective shield, service weapon, the respect of his peers, felt like a fever dream. Patricia had stopped pretending to hide her contempt. Sophie's teacher conference is Thursday. Don't bother coming. I'll handle it. I want to be there. In your pizza uniform? You'll embarrass her more than you already have. Patricia checked her reflection in the hallway mirror, adjusting her designer blouse. Randall, Principal Lowry, will be there. He's been very supportive during this difficult time. Max bet he had been. He'd watched them together at the last PDA meeting he'd crashed. The way Lowry touched Patricia's elbow, leaned in too close. The way she smiled at him, a smile Max hadn't seen directed at himself in months. They thought they were clever. What they didn't know, Max had installed a voice-activated recorder in Patricia's car 2 weeks ago. He'd heard every conversation, every plan, every lie. How much longer are you going to keep this up? Lowry's voice on yesterday's recording. Your husband, playing delivery boy. It's pathetic. Just a few more months. Patricia's response. Once the divorce is finalized, I'll have the house, and with Sophie, well, no judge will grant custody to a pizza driver over a mother with her life together. And the donations from the spring fundraiser? Cleared into the offshore account this morning. Another $70,000. No one questions PDA finances, especially when the principal's girlfriend is running the books. Max had listened to that recording 3 times, each playthrough adding another layer to his resolve. That Thursday, while Patricia attended the conference, Max made a delivery to Louise Carter's address. The second-grade teacher had ordered a small pizza, unusual for a school night. She answered the door with red-rimmed eyes. Mr. Hoffman. Surprise crossed her face. I didn't realize. It's just Max now. He handed over the pizza, then lowered his voice. The order came through with a note. Need to talk. Louise glanced behind her, then stepped onto the porch. I shouldn't get involved, but I'm worried about Sophie. She's been acting out, saying terrible things about you. Today in class, she told the other kids her father was a failure, that her mother said you'd given up on life. Louise's voice cracked. Max, I've known you for 3 years. You've always been a devoted father. What's going on? This was the moment. Max looked into Louise's honest face and made a decision. I'm going to tell you something, and I need you to keep it completely confidential. Can you do that? Louise nodded. I'm not really a pizza delivery driver. I'm working undercover for a narcotics investigation. There's a drug distribution network operating through the school. We believe it's being run by someone in the administration. Louise's hand flew to her mouth. Principal Lowry. What makes you say that? I've seen things. Parents showing up to pick up their kids, having these brief conversations with him in the parking lot. Strange packages in the school mailroom addressed to fake teachers. I thought I was being paranoid. She paused. Your wife volunteers in the front office. Does she know? She knows more than she should. Understanding dawned on Louise's face. I'm so sorry. Don't be. I need you to do something for me. Keep watching Sophie. Be there for her. When this breaks, she's going to need someone she trusts. Of course. As Max drove away, he allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. He'd just gained an ally inside the school. And more importantly, he'd set another piece of the trap. Chapter 3. The Call. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon while Max was installing a tracking device on a delivery car used by one of Lowry's distributors, a man who worked as a freelance tutor and made house calls to parents who ordered through coded pizza requests. Mr. Hoffman? This is Louise Carter. I think you should come to the school. Max's pulse quickened. What happened? Sophie just had a breakdown in my classroom. She said some concerning things. I'm calling as a mandatory reporter, but I wanted to give you a heads up first. 20 minutes later, Max sat across from Louise in her empty classroom. Sophie was with the counselor. She's been struggling for weeks, Louise began. Today it came to a head. She told the class her father was an embarrassment, that her mother was going to divorce him and marry someone successful. Then she said, Mom says people like Dad don't deserve respect. Louise's expression hardened. That's emotional abuse, Max. I had to file a report. I understand. But there's more. I asked Sophie if she felt safe at home. She said yes, but she mentioned something odd. She said her mother has a lot of secret meetings and gets angry if Sophie asks questions. She said Principal Lowry is at their house a lot when you're at work. Max had known this, but hearing it from his daughter's perspective twisted something in his chest. How much longer? Louise asked quietly. 72 hours. Maybe less. He met her eyes. Can you keep Sophie safe until then? I'll watch her like she's my own. That night, Max sat in his surveillance van outside Riverside Academy. His partner, Detective Gary Chung, munched on cold pizza beside him. We've got enough for warrants, Gary said. Financial records, surveillance footage, recorded conversations. Lowry's cooked. Not yet. Max adjusted the directional microphone aimed at Lowry's office window. We need the supply chain. Lowry's just the distribution hub. Someone's feeding him the pills, and we need that connection. Your wife's on the warrant list, man. You sure you're okay with this? Was he? Max thought about Sophie, growing up thinking her father was a failure. About Patricia, so consumed with status and greed that she'd compromised everything their family stood for. About the parents who'd gotten hooked on pills distributed through school fundraisers. I'm sure. The microphone crackled to life. Lowry's voice. Tomorrow night. The spring gala. We move the whole shipment then. With all the parents there, the noise, the confusion, perfect cover. A second voice, female, sharp, and the money? Patricia's handled it. Offshore accounts, clean as a whistle. After tomorrow, we shut it down for a few months. Let things cool off. Max smiled grimly. Got him. Moving in tomorrow? Gary asked. During the gala. Maximum exposure. I want everyone to see exactly who they've been trusting their kids with. Max drove home that night, knowing it was the last time he'd sleep in that house as the man his family thought he was. Tomorrow, everything changed. He found Sophie asleep on the couch, her math homework scattered around her. Max gently brushed hair from her face. I'm sorry, baby, he whispered. But you're going to understand soon. Patricia came home at midnight, reeking of wine and Lowry's cologne. She didn't even look at Max. Perfect. Chapter 4. The Gala. The Riverside Academy Spring Gala transformed the gymnasium into something out of a catalog. White lights strung across the ceiling, silent auction tables laden with donated prizes, a jazz quartet playing in the corner. Max watched from the parking lot, dressed in his Antonio's uniform, his van loaded with pizza orders for the event. All units in position. Carl Harrison's voice crackled through his earpiece. Max, you're clear to enter. Max grabbed the first stack of pizza boxes and headed inside. Parents in cocktail dresses and suits mingled, wine glasses in hand. He spotted Patricia immediately. She wore a red dress he'd never seen before, laughing at something Randall Lowry said, her hand on his arm. Sophie stood near the refreshment table, scrolling through her phone, alone. Max's chest tightened. Pizza delivery. Max called out, playing his role. Several parents glanced his way, then quickly looked away. The embarrassing presence of a service worker at their elegant event. He set up the pizzas on a side table, catching fragments of conversation. I heard he used to be a detective, someone whispered. Nervous breakdown, apparently. His poor wife. Patricia's been holding everything together. Max moved through the crowd, making mental notes. There, Tim Quick, the tutor, talking with Dr. Marcella Simmons, who ran the district's prescription drug program. And there, Darren Atkinson, who owned the pharmacy that had reported unusual prescription patterns. All the pieces in one room. Lowry climbed onto a small stage. Thank you all for coming. Tonight, we're celebrating another successful fundraising year. Thanks to your generous donations, we've raised over $300,000 for our programs. Applause filled the room. Max watched Patricia beam from the front row. What the crowd didn't know, actual program funding was less than a third of that. The rest had been skimmed, laundered, and used to purchase prescription narcotics that were then sold back to the same parents who'd donated. It was brilliant, and it was about to end. Max slipped out to his van, where Gary waited with the tactical team. 15 minutes, Max said. Let them make the exchange first. He'd installed cameras in Lowry's office weeks ago. On the monitor, they watched as Lowry and Quick entered, followed by Patricia carrying a leather briefcase. Patricia opened it, revealing stacks of cash. Last shipment, Lowry said, pulling out a bag from his desk. After this, we're dark for 6 months. The accounts are clean, Patricia confirmed. I've moved everything offshore. Even if someone looked, they'd need a warrant and a miracle. Quick counted the pills. This'll last us through summer. By fall, we start fresh. And the husband? Lowry asked Patricia. She laughed. Max. Please. He'll be serving pizza for the rest of his life. The divorce papers are already drawn up. I've documented his instability, his abandonment of his career. No judge will give him custody. Max felt Gary's hand on his shoulder. Brother, let me call it. You don't have to be the one. No. Max keyed his radio. All units, execute. The gym's lights cut out. Emergency lights flickered on. Someone screamed. Max walked back in, but this time he wasn't wearing the Antonio's uniform. He wore his tactical vest, his detective shield hanging around his neck, his service weapon holstered at his side. Behind him, a dozen officers poured through the doors. Everyone stay calm. Carl Harrison's voice boomed. This is a police operation. Max walked straight to the stage. Lowry had frozen mid-sentence, his face draining of color. Their eyes met. Evening, Principal Lowry. We need to have a conversation about your fundraising activities. Chapter 5. The Revelation. Chaos erupted. Parents pulled out phones. Someone shouted questions. Max ignored it all, his focus locked on Lowry. Detective Hoffman? Lowry's voice cracked. I don't understand. don't you? Max climbed onto the stage. Let me help. For the past 8 weeks, I've been conducting an undercover investigation into a narcotics distribution network operating through this school. A network that uses PTA fundraisers to launder money and parent meetings to facilitate drug sales. He pulled out his phone, connected it to the presentation screen. The room's attention shifted to the display. These are bank records showing $300,000 in fundraising donations. And these, he clicked through, are records showing only $90,000 reaching actual school programs. Where'd the rest go? Principal Lowry. Lowry's mouth opened and closed. In the crowd, Patricia had gone pale. Max clicked again. Surveillance footage played. Lowry meeting with Quick in the parking lot, exchanging packages. Lowry and Dr. Simmons discussing prescription quotas. Lowry and Darren Atkinson coordinating inventory. You used these people's trust, Max said, his voice carrying through the silent gymnasium. You used their kids' school as a cover for poison. Officers moved through the crowd, pulling aside Quick, Simmons, and Atkinson. Lowry stumbled backward. I want a lawyer. Smart choice. Max nodded to Carl, who stepped forward with handcuffs. Randall Lowry, you're under arrest for money laundering, distribution of controlled substances, conspiracy to commit fraud. Wait. Patricia pushed through the crowd. This is insane. Randall, tell them this is a mistake. Max turned to his wife. Their eyes met. For a moment, he saw a flicker of understanding, the realization that he'd known all along. Patricia, his voice was soft. You should probably stay quiet. Don't tell me what to do. You've humiliated this family enough. Sophie, come here. Mrs. Hoffman. Detective Gary Chung appeared at Patricia's elbow. I need you to come with me. What? No. I'm a victim here. My husband abandoned his career, our family. Gary pulled out his handcuffs. Patricia Hoffman, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit money laundering, fraud, and distribution of controlled substances. The color drained from her face. No. Max, tell them. Tell them what, Patricia? Max descended from the stage. Tell them about the $70,000 you moved to offshore accounts last month? About the fundraising ledgers you falsified? About the meetings with Lowry where you coordinated payment schedules? He pulled out his phone, played an audio recording. Patricia's voice filled the gymnasium. No one questions PTA finances, especially when the principal's girlfriend is running the books. Sophie's voice cut through the chaos. Dad. Max turned to find his daughter staring at him, tears streaming down her face. Louise Carter had an arm around her shoulders. Sophie, you weren't really a pizza driver? No, baby. I'm a detective. I was working. And Mom. Sophie looked at Patricia, who stood in handcuffs, mascara running. Mom was stealing? We'll talk about this, Max said gently. I promise. But right now, I need you to go with Miss Carter, okay? Louise nodded, squeezing Sophie's shoulder. Come on, sweetie. As they led Patricia out, she lunged toward Max. You bastard. You set me up. You used our daughter. No. Max's voice was ice. You used our daughter. You made her ashamed of me, so she wouldn't ask questions about your late nights with Lowry. You documented my instability to build a custody case. You turned her against me for your con. Patricia's face contorted with rage. I'll destroy you in court. My lawyer. Your lawyer is going to be very busy. Carl stepped between them. We have 18 months of financial evidence, recorded conversations, and witness testimony. You're done, Mrs. Hoffman. As they dragged her out, Patricia screamed threats and accusations. Max watched impassively. Then he turned to address the stunned parents. I apologize for the deception, but this investigation required deep cover. Some of you may have purchased pills through this network, thinking they were legitimate prescriptions. We're not here to arrest users. We want the suppliers. If you've been affected, detectives will be available to take confidential statements. He scanned the crowd. This school should have been safe. Your children deserved better than having their education turned into a criminal enterprise. I hope we've begun to make that right tonight. Silence. Then someone started clapping. Louise Carter, still standing with Sophie. Others joined in, the applause building until it filled the gymnasium. Max felt nothing, just hollow exhaustion. Chapter 6. The Aftermath. The interrogation rooms at the precinct buzzed with activity. In separate rooms, Lowry, Patricia, Quick, Simmons, and Atkinson were being processed. Max watched through one-way glass as Patricia faced down a public defender. My client wishes to cooperate, the lawyer said, in exchange for immunity. The prosecutor, a sharp-eyed woman named Camille Bird, smiled. Your client was running the financial side of a multi-million-dollar drug operation. Immunity is off the table. But if she provides actionable intelligence on the supply chain, we'll consider reducing charges. Patricia leaned forward. I want to talk to Max. Detective Hoffman has recused himself from your interrogation due to conflict of interest. Please. Patricia's voice cracked. I need to explain. From behind the glass, Max watched his wife of 13 years fall apart. Gary stood beside him. You want to talk to her? No. Max turned away. She made her choices. In another room, Lowry was singing like a canary, implicating everyone above him in the supply chain. Turned out the operation stretched across 3 states, with corrupt doctors writing fake prescriptions and a pharmaceutical distributor skimming inventory. By midnight, they had enough evidence to bring down the entire network. Carl found Max in his office, staring at a photo of Sophie from Better Times. You should go home. Get some sleep. What home? Max set the photo down. Patricia's in jail. Sophie's with child services until they clear me for custody. I'm staying at a motel. The review board will clear you by Monday. Your cover was legitimate, authorized. You'll get Sophie back. And then what? How do I explain that I lied to her for 2 months? That her mother's going to prison? Carl sat down heavily. You tell her the truth. That sometimes doing the right thing costs everything. That you did it anyway because that's what heroes do. Max laughed bitterly. Heroes? Right. Max. Carl's voice sharpened. You just brought down a drug network that was poisoning families. You maintained deep cover while your wife cheated on you and your daughter called you a failure. You didn't break. You didn't seek revenge. You built an airtight case and executed it perfectly. He stood. That's not heroism. That's something rarer. That's integrity. After Carl left, Max sat alone in his office, reading the psychiatric evaluation required for custody proceedings. The evaluator had written, Detective Hoffman demonstrated exceptional emotional regulation under extreme duress. His decision to maintain undercover status despite personal cost shows remarkable dedication to duty and child welfare. Recommend full custody with family counseling. His phone buzzed. A text from Louise Carter. Sophie's asking for you. I told her you'll see her soon. She's processing everything, but she's strong. Like her dad. Max closed his eyes, allowing himself to feel it. The relief, the exhaustion, the grief for his broken marriage, the hope that maybe, just maybe, he could rebuild a relationship with his daughter. Tomorrow would bring press conferences, testimony, paperwork. Tonight, he just needed to survive. Chapter 7. The Trial. 3 months later, Max sat in the courtroom gallery, watching Patricia's trial. She'd refused every plea deal, convinced she could convince a jury she was a victim of Lowry's manipulation. It wasn't going well. The prosecutor held up bank records. Mrs. Hoffman, can you explain these 17 separate transfers to offshore accounts, totaling $460,000? Patricia, dressed in a conservative blouse her lawyer had clearly chosen, tried for tears. Randall told me they were for legitimate school programs. I trusted him. You trusted him enough to have an affair with him? Objection. Patricia's lawyer jumped up. Sustained. The judge frowned. Ms. Bird, relevance? Your Honor, the affair establishes Mrs. Hoffman's knowing participation in the conspiracy. She wasn't a dupe. She was a partner. The prosecutor played the audio recording, the one where Patricia discussed laundering money with Lowry. Patricia's voice filled the courtroom, cold and calculating, nothing like the tearful victim she was trying to portray. The jury's expressions hardened. During recess, Patricia spotted Max in the hallway. She approached, her lawyer trying to stop her. This is your fault, she hissed. You destroyed our family for your ego. Max looked at her, really looked. The woman he'd married at 25, young and ambitious. Somewhere along the way, ambition had curdled into greed, and he'd been too focused on his work to notice. No, Patricia, you destroyed our family when you chose money over your daughter. When you taught Sophie to be ashamed of honest work. When you climbed into bed with a criminal. I could have given her everything. She didn't need everything. She needed a mother who taught her right from wrong. Max turned away. Goodbye, Patricia. The trial lasted 2 weeks. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Lowry got 15 years. Quick got 12. Dr. Simmons and Darren Atkinson each got 8. And Patricia, who'd orchestrated the financial side, who'd laundered millions, who'd betrayed her family, got 10 years. Max didn't attend the sentencing. He was at Sophie's school, watching her science fair presentation. Chapter 8. The Healing. Sophie's project was about pH levels in local water sources. She explained her methodology with confidence, her poster board covered in charts and photos. When she finished, she looked at Max hopefully. "What do you think, Dad?" "I think you're brilliant." He smiled. "First place, easy." She won second, but the beam on her face when they called her name was worth more than any trophy. Afterward, they went for ice cream, their new Thursday tradition. "Dad," Sophie swirled her spoon through mint chocolate chip. "I wrote Mom a letter." Max's stomach clenched. The therapist had said Sophie would need to process her feelings about Patricia on her own timeline. "What did you say?" "I told her I was angry, that she lied to me and made me hurt you." Sophie's voice wavered. "But I also told her I hoped she learned something in prison, that maybe she could be better when she got out." "That's very mature, sophomore. Dr. Rush says forgiveness is for me, not for her. That I can forgive Mom for being wrong without forgetting what she did." Sophie looked up, her eyes, so much like Max's, fierce with determination. "I'm not forgetting, Dad. But I'm not going to hate her forever either. That would make me like her." Max reached across the table, squeezed her hand. "You are nothing like her. You're better than both of us." That night, after Sophie went to bed, Max sat on the porch of their new apartment, smaller than the house. But it was theirs, untainted by Patricia's betrayal. His phone rang. "Carl Harrison. Got news. The pharmaceutical distributor just flipped. We've got 3 more states ready to file charges. This thing's bigger than we thought." "That's good. Max, there's talk of a commendation. Maybe a promotion to sergeant." "I don't need a promotion." "What do you need?" Max looked through the window at Sophie's room, her light still on. "Probably reading instead of sleeping. What I have is enough." After he hung up, he pulled out a box from the closet. Inside were letters, dozens of them, from parents whose kids had been affected by the drug network. Thank you letters. Apology letters from those who judged him during his undercover work. One stood out, from Louise Carter. "Max, I've taught for 15 years, and I've never seen a parent sacrifice more for their child's safety. Sophie will understand someday that you didn't just save her. You saved hundreds of kids. That's the legacy you're giving her. Not a house in a nice neighborhood or expensive clothes, but the knowledge that doing the right thing matters more than what people think. Thank you for being the kind of father this world needs more of." Max carefully refolded the letter, placed it back in the box. Chapter 9. The Uniform. 6 months after the trial, Riverside Academy held a special assembly. The new principal, a woman named Hilda Rush who'd been vetted thoroughly by the district, had invited Max to speak. He stood backstage, adjusting his dress uniform, the same one he'd worn the night of the gala, now with an additional commendation bar. Sophie stood beside him, wearing her science fair medal. "You nervous?" she asked. "Terrified. You brought down bad guys. Speaking to middle schoolers should be easy." Max laughed. "You'd think that, wouldn't you?" Principal Rush introduced him. "Students, we've invited Detective Max Hoffman here today to talk about courage, integrity, and why honesty matters, even when it's hard." Max walked onto the stage, facing an auditorium full of kids. He found Sophie in the 3rd row, gave her a small smile. "When I was 11, he began, my dad told me that character is what you do when nobody's watching. I didn't understand it then. But a few months ago, I had to make a choice. I could keep my comfortable life, my nice house, my reputation, or I could do something that would cost me almost everything." He told them the story, edited for a younger audience, but truthful. About going undercover. About being called a failure. About his daughter being ashamed of him. The hardest part wasn't the danger. It wasn't working long hours or eating cold pizza in a surveillance van. It was looking at my daughter and knowing she thought I'd given up. His voice caught. "But I also knew that if I didn't stop the people hurting families in this community, I'd be teaching her that comfort matters more than courage." He looked at Sophie. Tears streamed down her face, but she was smiling. "My daughter thought I was embarrassing because I delivered pizza. Now she knows I was protecting her and every kid in this room. And that's not embarrassing. That's what parents are supposed to do." The applause started slowly, then built. Kids stood. Teachers joined them. Sophie climbed onto the stage, threw her arms around him. I'm sorry I called you a failure, she whispered. You were 11. You believed what you were told. Max hugged her tight. But you're 12 now. Old enough to decide for yourself who to believe. After the assembly, parents approached Max, some thanking him, others apologizing for their judgment during his undercover work. One woman, whose son had been struggling with addiction fueled by the network, simply hugged him and sobbed. As the crowd thinned, Louise Carter approached. You did good, Max. Thanks for calling me that day. About Sophie, I'm a mandatory reporter. It's my job. No. Max shook his head. Calling me first, giving me a heads up, that wasn't your job. That was kindness. It made all the difference. Louise smiled. Sophie's lucky to have you. That evening, Max and Sophie drove to the cemetery. They stood before a grave marker. Detective Thomas Hoffman, 1948 to 2015. Beloved father, honest man. Grandpa would be proud of you, Sophie said. Max placed flowers on the grave. I hope so. Dad? The kids at school, some of them want to be detectives now. Because of you. That's a hard job, sophomore. You have to be willing to sacrifice. You sacrificed our house. Mom's in prison. Everyone thought you were a loser. Sophie looked up at him. But you saved people. Isn't that worth it? Max thought about Patricia, serving time in federal prison. About Lowry and his co-conspirators, their lives ruined. About the families recovering from addiction, the kids who'd been saved from getting hooked, the parents who'd learned to question what seemed too good to be true. He thought about integrity, about doing right when it cost everything. Yeah, he said finally. It's worth it. They drove home as the sun set, the radio playing softly. Sophie did her homework at the kitchen table while Max made dinner. Spaghetti, her favorite. Simple. Honest. Enough. His phone buzzed. A text from Carl. New case. Interested? Max looked at Sophie, bent over her math book, her tongue sticking out in concentration. The same expression she'd had as a toddler learning to walk. He typed back. Not tonight. I'm with my daughter. Some things were more important than the job. And for the first time in his career, Max Hoffman understood that wasn't weakness. It was wisdom. Outside, the sun dipped below the horizon. In the apartment's warm light, a father and daughter sat together, talking about nothing and everything. The past months had stripped away the house, the marriage, the illusions of a perfect life. What remained was truth. And truth, Max had learned, was the only foundation worth building on. Sophie looked up from her homework. Hey, Dad, next month, for career day, would you come? In your uniform? Max smiled. I'd be honored. And maybe don't tell the pizza delivery story. It still makes me cringe a little. Deal. She went back to her homework, humming softly. Max watched her, this fierce, forgiving, brilliant kid who'd survived her mother's betrayal and emerged stronger. The badge on his chest caught the light. Tomorrow would bring new cases, new challenges. But tonight, he was exactly where he needed to be. A father, a detective, an honest man. And that was enough. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.